Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone? What an episode. It's so the thing that's like sticking with me right now on how I feel about it is actually like the it's the changes that they've made to Aemond. And because obviously I think the biggest shock of the episode, especially somebody that's like read the source material, is how they've changed Aemond around. Um, the source. Again, I don't think the source material is good, so it's like I don't really mind changes to the source material that much. But it's interesting that in the source material, Aemond is nothing but dutiful guy, and in fact, his opposition, Daemon, is also nothing but a dutiful individual. And obviously, that's just not the way they're going in the show. Like the battle of over the God's Eye, this like final battle between like the two most dutiful characters, who it is not the case anymore. And now they've taken Aemond and made him very conniving. I mean, the fact that like he just straight up like burned his brother. Like he straight up burned his brother, sending him to the ground, and then was about to mercy kill him. Um, that's a huge shift in who Aemond is in the source material and even is in the previous episodes. Um, I don't know. I mean, granted, Aemond's insane, so you can kind of say, okay, well, whatever Aemond was doing, it's fine because he's crazy. He makes those shifts, but like going straight from like my brother embarrassed me at the brothel in front of his friends to murdering my brother is a huge shift, and so that's the thing that is irking me at the moment. I'm not sure how I feel about the whole thing. I mean, obviously, Aemon becomes a more interesting character, but that's quite a turnaround. Um, for the most part, I was digging the episode. The battle was very well done. Um, anytime there's a battle going on, and I feel like I know what's going on, and I can kind of keep track of the characters and everything. I feel good about it. For the most part, you could do that. There's a couple cuts where all of a sudden Rhaenys is flying, and you're like, how did she get there? But for the most part, it was a fairly logical battle where I could, get the narrative of what was going on. Um, but yeah, the whole like actually it was even before like burn like Aemond lets his brother go into battle where he knows his brother is going to be probably hurt, then comes up, burns his brother, lets him fall to the ground, and then presumably dying. But then when he's not dead, gonna go and mercy kill him. That's over embarrassing him at the brothel. Um, that's pretty huge from a guy who was like just a couple episodes like, oh, I really didn't mean to kill Luke. Oh, it was a mistake. To like cold-blooded kinslayer. That's a swift turnaround. I'm not sure how I'm feeling about that. I know people have other plot holes that they're probably like going to focus on, like how do you hide a dragon that big, or like um uh things like that, or I'm just trying to think of some other weird things that like stuck out at me in the dragon fight, or like why Rhaenys is acting so suicidal. That didn't bother me as much. I think I'm just really focused on this Aemond like character switch that's just kind of crazy. Mercy kill. I think that's what he was doing with his sword at the end. That he had his sword out. I mean, maybe it wasn't mercy kill. Maybe it was just going to be straight murder. But it's it's a little it's a little weird. Aemon probably respected Luke more than he respected Aegon, but Luke took his eye. I mean, Luke took his eye. If we're talking like things that somebody did that's mean, like embarrassing you at the brothel in front of your friends versus like taking somebody's eye. Um, so, do you think Aemond saw the dagger prophecy? No, no, I don't think so. Um, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of moments in this episode, by the way, where I was like, "Oh, did they watch like season three watch? I mean, episode three watch? Like a lot of like commenting on things that were wrong last episode, like screaming at Laurie Strong about how this is your castle. Like how do you know? How do you not know what's going on with it? And it's like if they knew that, then why? If they knew that that Laurie Strong was Lord of the Castle, why did they make all these plans last episode? Um, Also, it's weird that High Valyrian works differently, I guess, in the show than it does in the books, because obviously, like everyone, High Valyrian is like Latin in the sense that like educated people are trained in it, and so everyone at that table should have an education in High Valyrian, especially the Maester. But they play it like this scene, like, oh, Aemond, Aegon, we're gonna have this private conversation, so these other guys don't know what's going on. But it's like they all are trained in High Valyrian, like especially that Maester. Um, they know what you're saying. They know what you're saying, dudes. But uh, anyway, lot of stuff, lot of stuff. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see. People are excited about Dragon Fight. I mean, it was overall, I'm fine with the episode. I guess just the acting is great, the direction's great, but I do think the characters just are completely different character, like episode to episode. Like Laurys and Allison's relationship. Like this is a relationship where Laurys was bold enough to have a relationship where he was forcing her to show his feet and he was masturbating in front of her. Like, and now he's not at that relationship anymore. And he's like backed off on his power over her. It's, that's a little different. I think Allison, how she treats her son is a little different. I think how she treats Aegon is very different. Maybe she was just in a bad mood or something, but, I don't know. But I don't know. Aemond was fully prepared to let Aegon die. I mean, I think it was beyond that. I think Aemond was fully prepared. Or Aemond was killing him. I mean, this was straight up murder. I mean, he was supposed to get up and go into battle, and then sat back and let Aegon go into battle. That's not what anyone does to their king. That's not what anyone does to their brother. Like that's straight up. And then he straight up like sprayed fire on the two dragons, Meleys and Sunfire, in which Rhaenys was not burned at all because the flame was like on Aegon. So like clearly this was murder. Like he was gonna mercy kill murder at the end. This was well beyond like just letting him die. This was straight up, I'm killing my brother because, I mean, I guess we don't know if Maelor is a character but the idea would be that Aegon would be next in line. I mean, Aemond would be next in line if he would be king essentially, in this situation. Not knowing if Maelor is a character or not, because we kind of don't. I'm quite enjoying watching Daemon go crazy. Apparently the showrunners didn't get the same memo for Helena. Also, Laurie's acting hella sus. Yeah, I mean, I think the Laurie's actor and the Laurie's character is pretty great. I think he's gets that creepy vibe. I'm just a little weirded out that they walked back the relationship with Allison. But though I think the character is doing great. The Daemon going crazy stuff, it's interesting. I was all for the, seeing Millie in these roles, and but all of a sudden showing Lena there, I'm not sure what that's about. Like, why? I understand you just want to bring back people. You're just like bringing back characters for the sake of it. Because why would he be thinking about Lena? Like, what did he do? Like, is there anything that Daemon would feel guilty about with Lena? Like, it wasn't his fault that she was having um, pregnancy complications outside of impregnating her. I mean, but you know, outside of that, like he's not really like he didn't do anything to kill her. He didn't do anything to cut like. So I don't know why they would show Lena in the episode. Besides, like we're bringing back characters, but I liked the Alice Rivers interaction. I thought that was fun. I think Alice Rivers is a good character so far. Her not being scared of Daemon. Interesting stuff about her bringing in kind of book stuff about werewoods containing the souls of people and things like that, and him being on a bed made of werewood. Because that's straight up fandom stuff where it's like any piece of werewood would have like the souls of people in it. I mean, that's straight up like Sweet Robin has seizures because he sits on a werewood throne, like kind of stuff. Like you're sleeping on a bed made of werewood, therefore you're gonna get weird dreams. I mean, that's really in the weeds kind of stuff, but it's all right, it's all right. The With fear of our democracy, I dissent is a quote that will never be forgotten. Have you read the opinion? It's alarming and poignant. I did read Sotomayor's opinion. This is a quote in it. It's pretty depressing. I don't. It's hard to read something like that and not think that like America's in its death throes. We're in a very bad situation right now as a country, and I think declaring assumed immunity to the president is a horrible, horrible move. I mean, this is something that everyone across the board thought that they would never do, and yet here it is. Here we are. Suffering through it. And this isn't even about like Biden or Trump. Like, let's say both of them happen to go through their, if whether it's Biden or whether it's Trump, let's say the next presidency goes fine. We're talking like somebody down the line is going to abuse this even more so. Even though it's pretty scary that it would happen, with Trump by itself, it's pretty scary, but it'll be abused down the line. It's a horrible, horrible precedent to set. The Supreme Court is obviously out of control, and it's really, really stupid that we have unelected positions that are for life, and there's only 9 of them. And the fact that like a single person dying can shift the balance of the entire nation and change the laws is a ridiculous way to set up a government. Like, this was a really bad idea. Like, so I don't know how anyone can possibly justify it other than this was like some crazy thing. Yeah, like it's it's something really sad. It's sad because this is the end. I mean, it's like, how do I feel as an American, like seeing like my nation like completely fall apart? Like, this is one of these things that we're taught when we're young. Like, oh, we didn't want a king. George Washington, when they asked him to be king, he said no, and all of these things. Like, we learn about the genius of our system and no one being above the law, and here we are, like giving individuals immunity. I mean, everybody jokes like Biden right now could assassinate, have Navy SEALs go and kill Trump if he wanted. Like, that's the power given. Like, assumed immunity as commander in chief. That's an official duty. So it's really sad. It's really sad. It's and Sotomayor's opinion is completely correct. I don't know how to get out of it. It's very depressing. It's very depressing to see the entire system like completely screwed up by some absolute idiots. But what you gonna do? I don't know. All we can do is, try to vote for Democrats who will shift the Supreme Court back and um, try to have that ruling overturned. But that requires several elections and never having a Republican in between. Um, so it's the equivalent of batting a perfect game, you know. So it's Euro friendly time ever happen again? Not for a while. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But it's going to be hard just because of time zones and where I am and my work schedule and things like that. Let's see. A Song of Ice and Fire's theory. Everyone is everyone being warned by everyone else. I mean, one could say that like there's some sort of circular idea to the history, and they're all different. They're all the same souls reincarnated again, and something like that. Um, Vagar, the biggest dragon, has now killed two other dragons by stealth. Yeah, that is kind of ridiculous. You're right. I mean, it was quite noticeable that Vagar did the same kind of move out of nowhere to take out Mealy as he did to um, um, Verma. I always confuse the dragons of the three. Arax? It's not Arax, or is it Vermax? Um, his always get him wrong. His Arax was Arax. I was right. Sorry. The changes to Aemond are improvements. Aemon being disloyal makes sense. I do. It's not that I don't think it makes sense or it wouldn't be an interesting thing. I just think it's a little fast. You know, I think if we had more time building up, these last few episodes, so much time was given to Alicent and Rhaenyra and stuff like that, and how Aemon feels should really be focused on. Instead, all the Aemon time was like given to like guilt over kids getting killed and stuff like that. It's true. Aemon could have just let Rhaenys kill Aegon and then killed Rhaenys afterwards. That's true as well. And then he'd be a little more absolved. What was Aemond waiting for once Rhaenys arrived? For her to kill Aegon. Um, yeah, he wanted Aegon to die. That was clear. Um, he wants Helena all for himself. Aegon had to die. I mean, if they throw in there that actually like Aemond has been sleeping with Helena, and that actually the kids were his, and that actually his own son was like killed by Rhaenyra. That would be something, but it would kind of go against the whole like now that they've established that he's been monogamous with his sex worker. It's a little different, right? Um, yeah. I always think it's really weird when I'm just like talking about random stuff and then like somebody like does a downvote for no reason. Like it's the same person. Like these people like they go on to their alt accounts and then they do another one and then they go on to alt accounts and they do another one over something. And you're like, how do I get a downvote for talking about like it would be funny if Aemond and Helena were sleeping together? But it's like it's so weird. Like what goes on? See, go on your alt account and do it again, dude. Like go on your alt account and do it again. Like it's so weird um, about Aemond and Helena. Um, But yeah, the this is of course a reference. Yeah, see, there you go. He wants this is of course in reference to in reference to back when he's like, I would do my duty if I were like married to Helena kind of thing. Um by the way, we on in on YouTube, like as creators, we can see how many downvotes are like original downvotes and how many are repeats. And it's actually quite insane. So, and this goes for almost any video. But it's like actual downvotes are like 10%. Like almost 90% of downvotes are alt accounts, which is a hilarious kind of thing. So like anytime you like are in YouTube and you're like, oh my God, they got ratioed. No, they didn't. Like no one got ratioed. Like it's just it's just like seriously, it's 90% of downvotes are alt accounts. Um he landed on top of him in Facebook. It's not a big change. Oh, and Fire and Blood. Well, it's the in Fire and Blood. It's completely by accident. So in Fire and Blood, it was a three-way crunch that we did see briefly. But it was essentially like the three of them went into battle, and Meleys went comp on Sunfire, and then Vaemond went comp on Meleys, and then they were all swirling around, and they all crashed down together. So it is a big change in the sense that he's letting Aegon go off, fight on his own, and then comes in and flame on, burns everybody, and then causes Aegon to fall down by himself. So it's completely like there's no motive. Everything's accidental in Fire and Blood. Like Aemond doesn't do anything malicious to his brother. There's no reason to think that he has any hatred for his brother in the source material. So there is that aspect. I mean, they're clearly creating like Aemond clearly tried to kill his brother, which is a pretty crazy. I mean, it's a big change. What did Rhaenys mean by off to battle again, old friend? When have her and Meleys ever been in battle? They just said they had 80 years of peace. I'm trying to like come up with a some sort of explanation on what that could be. The there might be like an like we didn't see this because we actually were in the fucking war when we saw Laenor and Corley and Daemon, but like you could maybe say that like perhaps Meleys like went off and was actually in the Stepstones with them briefly, but you'd think that would have come up, you know, like you think that would have come up at some point. But that's the only thing I can think of on why they would be in battle again, because they've never battled at all. I'm trying to think, unless you're adding some sort of strange plot line where like somehow in her youth she went off and battled pirates or something, but they didn't establish that. And that would be an incredibly interesting story to just kind of like forget and not mention. This is one of my problems with like people being like, oh, it could make sense that Kristen Cole is both Dornish and a Stormlander. Yeah, it could, but that's a really interesting story, and it should have been brought up. Like, sometime I want to talk about this in depth with Carmine on a bit, but like, about like Kristen Cole, for example, like Kristen Cole being Dornish and being a Stormlander, like, you know, these sorts of things happen where you know one's original ethnicity or nationality is you know on some sort of like ethnic or racial level like is superseded by a later different ethnicity or nationality. I mean, for example, like in World War II, we had Japanese Americans who were fighter pilots fighting against Japan. So, in fact, Mr. Miyagi's character in A Karate Kid is one of those characters. But that's a huge part of the movie. Like a huge part of the movie is the fact that he was abused by America and seen as an outsider, despite the fact that he like did everything he could to be American, and, you know, fighting for America in World War II. And yet he's constantly seen as Japanese and an outsider, even though he's more American than American, right? He fought and he suffered, and his wife died in an internment camp and things like this. So like, you know, it's really interesting that like Mr. Miyagi is a Japanese American who fought against Japan in World War II. That's a really fascinating aspect of his character, an essential part of his character, really, to understand him. And so if Kristen Cole were, for example, a Dornishman who was a Stormlander and fought against the Dornishmen, that's, by the way, the exact same situation as Mr. Miyagi in Karate Kid. That's such a fascinating aspect of his personality. It would come up, and it should come up. Which makes me just say, like, no, they clearly saw Dornish marches and were like, he's Dornish. Like they weren't thinking of it because him being a Dornishman fighting against Dornishmen in war, and what that says about Kristen Cole's character is something so interesting that it should have been brought up by characters all over the place, but it's not, because they didn't think that through, and that wasn't really the thing. The same thing with Rhaenys. Like, yeah, we could have something in her past that like makes her like battle ready. Like maybe she was fighting pirates with Corlys. Maybe she was in the Stepstones. Maybe she did something crazy like that. You know, maybe there was a Vulture King, and she was part of the fight to take him down. There's a million things that would make the statement correct. However, the answers are so interesting that it should have been part of her character from the beginning, like Mr. Miyagi being a Japanese American fighting against Japan in World War II. You know, it's like it's so interesting that you wouldn't not mention it. So, yeah, obviously this is a big fucking, like, that's a plot hole. You can come up with a reason to fill that plot hole, but it doesn't really make sense that that reason would exist. Like, and a long way around to say I agree with you, Sergeant Crispy Toast. Like, it's a plot hole that you could fill, but the filling would actually create more of a plot hole too. Like the same thing with Kristen Cole and his Dornish heritage. Like, yeah, you can come up with a really neat plot on like really neat story on why Kristen Cole is both Dornish and a Stormlander. And it creates a bigger plot hole because no one fucking mentioned it. From my perspective, I think it was more than just the brothel. Aegon tormented Aemond for years, and the final straw was him showing to fuck up the plan and to steal his glory. I mean, I think that's what they're going to try to claim. I mean, you can bring up the Pink Dread incident as something that was actually Aegon from the beginning and stuff like that. But I think you probably needed more time with those two characters, unfortunately. Because like going back, besides the Pink Dread incident, like what like besides the Pink Dread incident and the oh gosh, and the thing is, I've watched the last episode like a few times. Aegon is actually like not even like, he's a little mean, but he's not like horribly mean. Like, had he been horribly mean, he would have been like, okay, time for my friends to bang this sex worker. But he actually is like, sorry guys, this sex worker is taken. And then Aemond is the one that's like, no, you can bang her. They could have like gone further. They could have totally been like, well, that's great. My friends need to bang your sex worker. And and made him more villainous. But he just wasn't that villainous, you know? He just runs into his brother and he's like, what are you doing with the same sex worker? That's ridiculous. And that's the thing that's supposed to allow a brother to murder another brother over? You know, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, we could say that Aegon was somehow tormenting Aemond, but we just don't see that much of it. Like, we don't see that much of it. Their relationship is essentially the pink dread. Him saying to him, like, I have nothing in common with my sister. I don't want to marry her. And then essentially what you hear a story about Aegon bringing Aemond to the brothel for the first time. And then he kind of says to his brother, like, you can be king. I'll let you be king. And that's about it. I mean, in Aemond's mind, here's also my problem with the Aemond Aegon thing. It's like a lot of time is dedicated to Aemond thinking that Aegon is weak. And that's the reason he should be king instead, because he feels he's stronger than his weaker older brother. And then there's also I actually hate the guy because he's mean to me and torments me. And, you know, one could argue, well, like, why can't it be both? Well, you kind of can't be both because there's a power, like, situation here. Like, in one case, he's saying, I'm the more powerful character. I pity and look down upon my weaker brother. And the other situation is, I resent the power my older brother has over me because he harasses and teases me. And so it's a little weird that there's like, which is it? Does Aegon feel he's more powerful than Aegon and thus needs to get rid of him? Or does he feel he resents being weaker? Now, you know, you could say, oh, those both work at the same time, but I don't know. I think it's a little conflicted. I would have liked more scenes between them establishing this relationship. If you're going to have a brother murder a fucking brother, give me some more meat on that relationship before we see it happen. Everyone at the table did know what they were saying. They just pretended not to understand because they didn't want to embarrass Aegon. Certainly that would be the logical case, but the problem is, in the inside the episode afterwards, Ryan Condal says the opposite. So it's unfortunate. But I mean, in fact, even if you look at their faces and they're looking uncomfortable, you could interpret the scene as they were understanding. It's just that Ryan Condal said afterwards that it was a private conversation between them. So it's kind of, I mean, I'll have to watch the inside the episode again, but I thought that's what he said in that. But you know, the implication for show only people, and keep in mind that if you're a show only person, the only people you hear saying High Valyrian to each other are the Targaryens. So it seems and the Dragon Keepers. So like, it seems like a private conversation between everything. And I think, somebody was not understanding what was being said way back when the Dragon Keeper was talking about Daemon stealing the egg. So I want to say that they're kind of establishing that other people don't know their little private language, when in fact, like, it's a language that everybody should know. But so I mean, imagine you're a show only person. You would assume that this is a private language, even though it's not a private language. It wasn't a private conversation. It was to humble Aegon's ability in the language, followed by him not reading the books. Ambiguous betray. I mean, there's definitely that aspect of it that Aegon was supposed to be not that good in High Valyrian, and thus like embarrassing him in that. But at least between them, you know. But the other characters High Valyrian would probably be on the same level as Aegon's, you know, or I mean, probably the Maesters would be higher. But say you're talking about like Tywin Lannister and and um, and Ironrod, like would they or Laurie Strong, like would they be as studious? Would they probably be on the same level as Aegon, probably, um, if not less? So I don't know, you know, to somebody not that good in a language, it's hard to tell like how good and bad if they have like somebody has a greater ability. Um, I bet Maelor is in the oven. Maybe it's hard to say. I mean, it's like Aemond coming out of nowhere and being mentioned 5 million times in the last couple episodes. Um, Larius definitely knows about Cole and Allison. Yeah, I mean, they really like hammered it home. I mean, I assumed he knew about them because he had his spies are her handmaidens. So, and he'd already said like, "Oh, I knocked on your door, but you were disposed." Like I thought he had already admitted it. Um, so it's like I think they're just hammering home with him like seeing her moon tea. Um, but yeah, I knew Vagar was going to be the sneaky one. Episode is meh. Thoughts on everywhere. Thoughts on everywhere deodorant. I don't know what is there at everywhere deodorant. What is everywhere deodorant spray? I don't. I've never. I guess there's. Oh. I never heard of it until now, but apparently there's a everywhere deodorant. Um. Why was Mealy's trying to kill herself? I don't. Yeah, I don't understand why like Rhaenys seemed pretty suicidal in this episode, and I don't know why. Like, what were the stakes for her to be suicidal? Um, Rook's like everybody's already getting roasted. Rook's rest is like done. It's a small post. Like, she's clearly outnumbered. Like the minute she saw Vagar, she should be like booking for home. Like, yep, crap, get me out of here. I don't understand why she was so suicidal. She had plenty of time to try to escape, and I think she rounds back at least once, maybe twice. She's like, "I'm gonna, go back," um, rather than, you know, does she think she can take out Vagar by herself? That's pretty bold for you know, it's pretty bold for her to think. Because I mean, Caraxes still exists out there. Daemon still exists. Like she should know that. Like, okay, if I get, maybe we can take out that dragon. Like I could see her thinking, like, okay, the only way to take out this dragon is me. Otherwise, I'm risking my queen or something like that. And all the other dragons are tiny. But the thing is, Caraxes still exists. So I don't know. Um, I've read everything George R. R. Martin has ever written. I have mostly. I think there might be some. Um, there's one thing I haven't read by him. He Shadow Twin. I haven't read Shadow Twin. Do I have to read Shadow Twin sometime? I've forgotten though. So many of them. Oh, if she leaves, she left Rick's Rust. She loses her chance to end the war by herself. I mean, does she seem like a glory kind of person? Like, wasn't she all about like let's limit this? I mean, she could maybe if like she was really focusing on the death and she was like looking at everybody like dying for a while, and then she's like, oh, the pain and destruction. I've got to take him out or something, or maybe if she got him angry, or if she was, but she was very calm. She was very calm and like, as if this was some sort of noble thing she was doing. Hmm. Um. Aemond was surveying an active combat zone. Um, I mean, Aemond was clearly like letting he was clearly letting the like Aegon die because he was he was about to go and then he wasn't. Oh, good, Preston talking about politics. Here you go, man. You're banned. Here's the thing. I talk about whatever the fuck I want. Don't tell me what to talk about. And you know, this is also a situation where it's like, where you think I'm not gonna like use my platform to try to like say how I feel about the world. Like it's very depressing. It's very depressing, the world and America and all of this. And it's really important that, you know, a someone like Trump like doesn't have immunity into the next and completely destroy the country and a lot of other things. So it's just like just like don't bother. You know, I mean, it's very clear. Like, guys, if you want to get banned, please post something pro Trump. You'll get banned immediately. Like, this isn't joking around anymore. Like Dave Fetterman, okay, you're banned too. Like that's it. Like that's it. This isn't a joke. This isn't like me like being like, oh, Preston doesn't like other perspectives. No, like somebody tried to fucking overthrow the US government. Someone, he tried to overthrow the US government. Then he put on a bunch of Supreme Court justices that gave him immunity. This doesn't sound fucking like scary at all. Like, come on. So it's just done. Like I just have no tolerance for it anymore. I have no tolerance for any of your trash, like any trash like this anymore. So, um, Cole is immune to smoke poisoning. Also, how the hell even survive the fall? By the way, anyone like if you're downvoting me because you're some Trumpy, like just leave. Like don't watch my shit, dude. Like just don't watch it. Like just leave. Like I'm not forcing you to watch me. Just fucking go away. Um, Cole is immune to smoke poisoning. Also, how the hell did Aegon survive the fall? They were definitely higher than surviving levels in the air. Yeah, I mean it's true. I mean he survives the fall in the source material too. Um, so it's hard to say exactly. I mean, I guess the idea is that somehow like the wing acts as some sort of parachute to like slow the dragon. The problem is that like because the dragon has so much momentum, he's landing on the ground like with this huge shock of momentum that would like go into him, you know. I mean, you could people are saying maybe he like the dragon is like a big like uh trampoline or cushion for him or something, you know. Um, but it's silly, but it happens in the source material too. So that somebody could fall on a dragon and somehow survive. Um, Supreme Court was always the weakest branch. Yes. Well, it's an unelected bunch of old people. Like it doesn't really make any sense. Um, Keep in mind these were put in place in a time when like the founders didn't really fully believe in democracy, and they thought that like the people can't really be trusted. I mean, keep in mind that when America first started, like senators were not elected. Um, you know, only land owning white men like voted. You know, and then even then they're like, oh, we still can't trust just like we can't even trust democracy that far. So it's like Senate and Supreme Court, got weren't even elected. Um, so yeah, it's a scary situation. I'm sick of Vagar's fat ass. Her stealth checks are insane. Um, Um, how's Rhaenys not cooked by Aegon's first flame? That's a good question. I mean, she definitely wasn't taking the flame the same way. I mean, we literally saw like the wings of Sunfire aflame as he was like going down. Um, and then we know that Aegon's going to be totally burned up, but Rhaenys didn't get anything. Um, all right, here's my headcanon to it. In the show, like we know Daenerys has a certain ability, a certain flame resistant ability, and so we just kind of assume that people with the ability to hatch dragons, or people with like females with the ability to hatch dragons, like have that like flame resistant. So I'm gonna say that like Rhaenys and Rhaenyra and Daenerys are all fireproof, but not none of the other Targaryens are fireproof or something. That's it. Maybe that just rain. That's the whole. That's all you could go with. Is that Rhaenys is as fireproof as Daenerys. That she's as special as Daenerys. Is it? You know. Um, Battle scenes look incredible when you can actually see it. What a novel concept. I was pretty impressed actually with the CGI on this because the whole reason people put atmosphere and put things at night is that it makes the CGI easier to do, um, and makes it more realistic. I mean, this is why like uh, um, the most famous scenes from Jurassic Park are that night at night in the rain thing. Um, I was impressed with how the dragons looked. They looked pretty great. There was easy. They were distinct enough that you could pick them out in the sky. I thought all that was pretty good. Was pretty good. Um, oh yeah, at least the French fought back against Le Pen. Go back to the subject. The French, yeah, the French were interesting. That you can just like get all worked up and go out and vote, and um, they were the French were impressive today. Um, Aemond fathers Maelor, now Aegon hurt. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, maybe father them all. We don't know. We don't. Um, I don't care about anyone has the right opinion. Just don't hate on another's if it isn't the same as yours. That's literally what makes America what it is. Respect for each other. I mean, obviously, this goes to a point, though. I mean, when you're talking would you really like respect somebody that was a Nazi? You know, like, and you just be like, well, I really respect your opinion that the Jews need to get sent off to concentration camps. Like, no, like I don't respect people with really bad opinions. Now, keep in mind that like Trump has talked about wanting to build concentration camps for immigrants to round them up. Um, this is something he's literally said. Like, and so it's like making that comparison isn't actually even like very like it's not even a big jump. Like it's a concentration camp to deport versus a concentration camp to execute, but it's still kind of like weird and fucked up. If somebody has a really bad idea, you don't have to respect them. You can say like, no, that's a really bad idea. It's not the like we're all sitting around being like, well, what a fascinating idea to build concentration camps. Should we debate this in the marketplace of ideas? No, this is fucking dangerous fucking shit. This is really dangerous shit going on here. Okay? This isn't like everyone having a civil discourse. Okay? We're talking about somebody that tried to overthrow the US government violently. People died. People are gonna die. Like this isn't like, everybody, oh well, let's all civilly sit down with like people that are like trying to actively destroy America. Um, like they tried to overthrow the government. I don't even know how like we can all forget that happened. He tried to overthrow the government, and now he has immunity, and now he's going to have immunity if he gets elected. He's apparently has immunity now. Um, was it accidental in Fire and Blood? All by a source, all lies. Yeah, it's true. It's hard to say. Who knows? I mean, that's the thing with Fire and Blood. You are correct. You are correct. Um, let's see. He's Stormish. The Stormish. Kristen Cole, the Stormish. Um, what do you think they're doing with Daemon's character now? I think they're trying to make him feel super guilty so that he'll eventually feel obligated to go battle to Aemond as like a final, like, I need to do this one good thing. I've done all these bad things and I need to make it up to Rhaenyra. I think that's where they're kind of going with it, rather than, I mean, book Aemond is just dutiful. He just does whatever Rhaenyra says, but like, I think they're trying to build it up like, I've got to make it up. I've got to make it up to her. I've got to make it. I've done all these bad things. I've done all these bad things, and this is the thing I can do to even the scales. Aemond actor was great in the episode. I mean, all the actors are fantastic. I mean, I think right now the actor that plays Aegon is my favorite right now. He's so good. But yeah, Aemond was fantastic. I mean, obviously, the Rhaenys actor is great too. I mean, she's able to take she Eve. What's her name? Eve Best is oh crap. Um, but they give like some of the actors that I kind of respect the most is when like they're given really bad lines, and yet they somehow, and like inconsistent lines, and they somehow like take um uh bad material and make it good. um I really, yeah, Eve Best. I mean, I do really appreciate that. So I do think Eve Best like takes some really bad material given to her, because her character is all over the map. Like, um, and they have to, like, I would almost say like the Rhaenys character, like every scene they're having her do something completely different. Like, okay, in this scene now you have to be lovey-dovey with Corlys. Okay, fine. And then this in that next scene you're gonna be like stoic, but like maternal towards Rhaenyra. Then in the next one you've got to be like jealous of Corlys, and on the next one you have to act like indignant and bored, and you're like, just every scene she's a different person, and she makes it work. It's really inconsistent, but I do really give Eve Best a lot of credit for her abilities. Um, Alice said that Daemon gets night terrors due to his bed in Harrenhal being married to Weirwood, Sweet Robin Weirwood Throne, causing a sickness confirmed. Yes, I did notice that. Um, it's I mean, probably coincidence. I'm not arrogant enough to think that anyone's watching my watching my videos, but I think that it's pretty funny that they mention the the many souls that are inside werewoods and things like that, and that actually a disembodied werewood piece can have the souls, because I don't think that's confirmed in the book that um, um, that sex worker is like his wife. How dare you? Kind of, but didn't they kind of establish that it had been a while since he'd seen the sex worker in episode 9? I mean, I have to rewatch that scene, but it seemed like it was like, because doesn't she say, "Oh my, you've grown"? or something. So I feel like it's been a long time since he saw her, and so he's only re-picked up his relationship with her for like a few weeks. So that's the so he can't he you know how in love with her can he be? I don't um mm, let's see here. No one speaks low Valyrian. That's true. Um the of course, like when I think of like High Valyrian, I think of the High German. Is there a Low German? That's the question. Oh, Low German or Plattdeutsch, historically spoken in the regions occupied by the Saxons and spread across the whole North German plain. Um, I guess because it's low lands, the low lands of the country versus, is that why it's called? I mean, some German would know better than me, but like High German. Yeah, I mean, at least with German, the High German comes from the Highlands and the Low German comes from the Lowlands. But um, we don't hear about like the highlands of Valyria versus lowlands of Valyria. I mean, obviously, it's supposed to High Valyrian is supposed to be against the bastard forms of like Lyseni Valyrian or Tyrashi Valyrian, that kind of thing is supposed to be the difference, I think. Um, but but they're it's using high in a different way. Um, Grand Maester would have to know High Valyrian. Absolutely, the Grand Maester would know High Valyrian. Like they're not going to send a Grand Maester who doesn't know High Valyrian. I mean, like a Grand Maester has to be an impressive Maester, right? And an impressive Maester, has to know it. I mean, one of the big reasons why like everyone knew, like, so in the olden days, like all educated people knew Latin because if you wanted to read a book, and there weren't that many books, the only books around were in Latin or Greek. So you'd like learn Latin and Greek so you could read because those were the books around, right? So if you're a maester and like you're gonna want to read everything from the Essos and ancient texts and things like that are giving me a High Valyrian. Of course, you're going to learn how to read High Valyrian. At least reading. I mean, maybe they're not going to be very good at speaking, but a Grand Maester would absolutely 100% know High Valyrian. Like there'd be nothing about it. Oh, they cut Kermit Tully. I'm ending it all. I think they probably had too many Muppet names in a row and they didn't want to mention them all. I mean, they already had. So does season 2 end with Rhaenyra taking King's Landing? I don't think so. I think they're pushing that to season 3. There's discussions of whether the season will end on the Gullet. I think people are still kind of having um, debates on this. We don't really have any like leaked scenes or anything showing that it would be the Gullet or anything like that. So it could be the Gullet. Um, I mean, I think that would at least have season 1 ending with Luke dying and season 2 ending with Jace dying and all of that. But I don't know where else you'd end it if not the Gullet. I mean, you could do some battles out of order and maybe try to have fish feed, um, or something, but you'd think there'd be something like that. Um, I want to root for Aegon, but they made him too bad in season 1. He wants to be good. He didn't burn his dad's books, and this is better than in the book. That's, yeah, I mean, the worst thing they did for Aegon is they made him a rapist. I mean, and I think the second thing is that he liked to watch child fights. Supposedly, I mean that might just be bull, but they definitely made him a rapist. So that's hard to get over. But if the thing is they've made Rhaenyra a murderer if with the body swap incident. So I don't I don't know I don't I it's hard for me to forgive that. It's really hard for me to forgive her murdering that guy. But I'm trying to think of anything like else Aegon has done besides being the rapist. I mean, if we ignore that one thing, it's a big thing. But it's too bad. You are right that he's kind of really likable in a pity kind of sense, like in a Viserys the Third kind of way. Um, um, well, she saw her husband's bastard, so. Oh, by the way, there is this. Speaking of bastards, there. Yes, I understand the scene where she goes up and sees Alan of Hull and all of that, and that's pretty rough for her. They purposely had her be the exact opposite of Kat, right? Where she's like, well, he's the he's it's no fault of his. It's like, oh, you're taking the exact opposite of Kat's position. Like, I think that was intentional. Um, but one of the things that I totally thought that when Rhaenyra sat down with Jace, and and of course it was on my mind when you see the moon tea container again, the moon tea prop again. But we never saw Rhaenyra actually drink the moon tea, so it's like her sitting down with Jace and being like, well, there's something I needed to tell you, and then actually telling him that like your dad's actually Kristen Cole would have been would have been really shocking, because it also would have made sense on like why she couldn't send her son to Rook's Rest, and she had to send Rhaenys, is that she didn't want him like killing his own dad or something and being a kinslayer. But none of that happened. So I don't think they're gonna. It doesn't look like they're gonna push the whole Kristen Cole is Jace's dad thing. Um, Yeah, did they cut Kermit because they were embarrassed by the name? I'm 6 feet from the edge. I know. I think it is. I think it totally is. That you just couldn't have a scene where you're like mentioning that many Muppet names in a row. Um, but yeah, but yeah, I think that's totally the reason. Um, oh, this she felt guilty for not doing it. Oh. So what the Watcher is saying, that Rhaenys was suicidal because she felt guilty for not killing everybody at the Dragon Pit. Yeah. Okay. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think they probably should have I mean, did they mention it this episode? They definitely mentioned it last episode where someone trashes her for not mentioning that. But if they were going to give her a go out in the blaze of glory suicidal thing, they should have had a scene with like her and Corlys where she talks about how guilty she felt or something, where it was just a little more clear that she was having those feelings. Because we never got any sense that she was feeling guilty about it. But I mean, that's a logical thing. Yeah, I agree that that's logical. But but yeah, I think they should have had a scene with her feeling guilty. Mm. Oh, oh. Um. Let's see. The hell does Biden do? Well, he did two infrastructure bills that everyone didn't think he'd get. He canceled student loans. He put on he appointed a lot of left wing judges to balance all the right wing judges, um, and also he he. I mean, if you want to get specific, he restarted assistance to the Palestinian Authority. He supports NATO. He supports Ukraine. A lot of things that a lot of it's what Trump will end. I mean, that's the other thing. Like when Trump comes into power, when, if and when horrible, even haven't even think about this, but like Trump's against NATO. Trump will not support Ukraine, and Russia will win Ukraine. So you're talking the end of Ukraine. Or at least half of Ukraine or whatever. I mean, Ukraine will lose the war if Trump is elected. NATO, Trump went on and on about pulling out of NATO, one of the most important organizations in the world, if not the most. I mean, I just can't NATO is done. That kind of stuff. He doesn't believe in Trump doesn't believe in climate change and things like that. So a lot of it's just that he's not Trump, who will destroy America. But Biden's done a lot, So, if Preston wants to talk politics, he's going to talk about politics, and Preston takes overthrowing the government seriously. Thank you, The Washer. Thank you. I struggle in Ruby Red, Florida. Any spicy politics you speak on gives me hope for a purple Florida. Talk that talk. I mean, if you want to feel better about the world, let's say that first of all, Democrats have overperformed on massively since Dobbs was overturned. Since then, things have only gotten worse. You're talking about Republicans ending IVF, Project 2025, talking about ending birth control. We're then the immunity decision and things like that. People really, really hate Trump, and these are real issues that really affect people's lives. Unlike polls and random articles that you'll see in the news. That, by the way, all the news sources New York Times is owned by a Trump supporter. ABC News is owned by a Trump supporter. CNN now is owned by a Trump supporter. So it's really when you see news story after news story being Biden's old, where it's coming from. I mean, Trump is pretty much the same age as Biden. They're 3 years apart. Trump makes gaffes all the time. But no one's calling for him to drop out of the race. So the idea is that the stuff that might make feel good is that the anti-Democrat and narrative is mostly imagined. It's mostly put out there by Trump pushing CEOs of these media companies, and that actually the public is very, very pro-Democrat right now because of the fall of Dobbs. And so it's something to feel good about, that be hopeful about. And going forward, these I don't know, win the election. That's all we can. And actually a lot of the polls after Biden's bad debate showed no movement. So, apparently it didn't, no one fucking cared really, despite all of the articles Biden must drop out. He hasn't moved in the polls at all. So we're in the same situation. I know it gets, I feel anxious and it hurts me and all, but there is logically hope. The election is 4 months off. We just need Biden to be reelected, and that's our start to pull ourselves out of this pit and try to save the country. She sees Aegon's dragon fall and she injures Vhagar and has the chance to escape. Instead, she wastes her dragon. Make it make sense. Yeah, I think the Watcher is right. I think that the best you can do with the situation is say, okay, she feels super guilty about taking out not taking out the whole family. And yes, maybe she thinks Aegon is dead, but she also knows that the succession now goes to Aemond, who's maybe even more dangerous. And so she needs to end it all. And the way to end it is to take out Vhagar, and she feels guilty for it. And even though it wasn't a smart move, it was her shot. She took a shot, a suicidal little shot, and did it. That's the only thing I can kind of like make sense of it all. Is that I do think they should have added more scenes, but I think that the Watcher's explanation is the best one we can come up with. That like she felt guilty for not ending it all, and now she's going to take that shot and do it. Um, it would have been nice also to have like another discussion with Corlys about how like her kids are gone, she's outlived her usefulness or something, she's no longer a mother. But then again, the problem is that Bela and Rhaena are still around, so she still has a lot of things to live for. So I don't know. um uh, uh. Isn't Aegon wearing Valyrian armor? He is. um I imagine that they're going to bring that up um in the next episode. In the source material, Aegon's armor melts, and one of the reasons that he's really hurt is the fact that his armor melted. It's of course like that's a big George R. R. Martin error again. Like George doesn't know melting points. This is a big thing about like the gold that's poured over Viserys's head. Like, no, you can't get molten gold. Like, like just like boiling it over a fire. Like, it's not gonna happen. Um, like, so it's like one of these situations. Like, yeah, if you were actually at the melting point of steel, somebody's dead. I mean, they're dead. There's no surviving that if you get to a melting point of steel. Like, ridiculous. So George doesn't understand melting points. Um, but I think what they're gonna say is that like he got blasted with the fire, and the only reason he survived is because most of his body was covered with Valyrian armor that protected him. I think they're probably going to go the other way with it. That the reason he actually survives is because of his armor, versus like you know he was hurt because of his armor, which was the source material. Rant ended too soon. Put this in the tip jar, PJ. Thank you, Bell the cat. Um, I'd vote for a piece of cheese over Trump. I would vote for a piece of cheese, and I'd probably vote for cheese over Trump. Um, uh, 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 uh. Term limits and more members. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there should be like 40 Supreme Court justices. It should not be like 9 people. It's so silly. Yeah, Dragon X Gene fireproof, only women. I think that's the what we're going with Rhaenys. Um, by the way, where's Trey? We all know our man Carmine be hustling to get that video out, but Trey should be here by now, or his calzones are still in the oven. Yeah. Yeah, so I think Trey is on a little vacation right now. I think I heard he was at the beach enjoying himself. So he's not going to be here tonight probably. And Carmine is hustling to get his video out. Though Carmine might join me if he gets it out. But he does. Carmine, this is like Carmine, like this is really important. Just career financials for him to get his like Game of Thrones season and get his videos out and everything. It's like you don't want to interfere with that. Um, yes, completely agree. Supreme Court needs like 24 members. It's yes. This is just like the dumb things we do in our life. Um, only 159 likes. Smash that like button, everybody. Um, France put abortion rights in the Constitution. It looks like a great place to relocate to. Abortion is a very interesting topic in America, and I'll tell you why. It's so a lot of people talk about how, oh, right now the fall of Dobbs, um, was this huge thing, and it is, but also keep in mind that like the number of people affected by the Dobbs ruling, like when you actually look at like all abortions in America, like Dobbs is only this like tiny fraction, right? Like still, like most people in America live in urban centers. Most of them, all the urban centers are in blue states. And then even the states that have limits on abortions like tend to only have it after like 18 weeks and things like this, when like 99% of abortions are before that. So the idea that, but you got to remember, like the anti-abortion movement, like they are all raised with this belief that that there is this massive Holocaust going on. Hundreds of millions have died in this war, and they look at these stats and they look at the number of abortions every year, the hundreds of thousands of abortions that happen in America every year, and they're like devastated by the sheer volume. And that's they've been programming their youth with this narrative for decades. And so for someone in that movement to look at the fall of Dobbs as the end of their war, no. Like, that they'd be like, that's 5%, like, or whatever, it's probably less than 5%, because now women just go out of state. I think actually they only said that there's like 40,000 extra live births in America since the fall of Dobbs per year. So that's you're affecting, like, again, that's there's 5% of abortions that happen in America every year or something. So they will not stop. Like they will never stop unless they're getting rid of all of them, or at least like a high percentage. Like, so it's going to be a battle that keeps going, and it's a losing battle for the Republicans, this issue, because most Americans are pro-choice, and so it's they're going to be stuck with it. I mean, you can see Trump already trying to distance himself from it, saying like, oh, I'm not for a national abortion ban. And then the Republicans being like, but this is part of our platform. And it's been part of our platform for years. Like, Republican National Platform has always had a national abortion ban in it. And now Trump is distancing himself from that and distancing himself from Project 2025 and stuff like that. But the thing is, it's stuck on him, So, it's the only thing that might save the country is the fact that, like, women are going to vote, and they're that they associate Trump with the danger to reproductive rights. So don't they have the Art of the Dragon warfare? That's a really good question. The thing is prior to the dance, there was only one dragon versus dragon battle, and that was Maegor the Cruel versus Aegon the Uncrowned. That was the only one that happened. And that wasn't really a fair fight. Like, Quicksilver was this tiny little dragon, and against Balerion, and it was over in 2 seconds. Now you could maybe say, like, okay, Aegon's like dragon versus army like ground army campaigns or something, you can look at that kind of stuff, and you can think about like Dornish warfare against dragons and things like that. But I don't know how many, did Aenor, when he left Valyria, bring any dragon books with him? Did he bring any scrolls? Did the Valyrians have any scrolls? Because the Valyrians have been on Driftmark longer, but did they bring any scrolls on the art of dragon warfare, of dragons versus dragons? It's something that's never brought up. I mean, they speak of this was kind of weird. Is in the book, the book on Rhaenys the Dreamer is only in like fragments. Yet still, that was only like 400 years ago. But like somehow, like her stuff was is only surviving in fragments. So this idea that there'd be other dragon books on dragon warfare, they'd be pretty rare. Now keep in mind, this is an era where Trey the Explainer has a great video on lost books. And the interesting thing was that, like, okay, like when certain books existed, keep in mind that people have to write them like out the whole thing. So sometimes like books, there were only ever in existence 8 copies. If it's a really big, great book, there'd be like 20 copies in existence. So people would borrow them, and because there was, it takes a lot of time. And so like for books to become lost was a lot easier because it took so much time. You'd have to be like, oh, does this book deserve how many countless man hours to rewrite out the entire thing again? Especially if it's like not in a language anyone understands or something like that. Somebody's going to be like, well, I don't know, the paper's rotting, things like that. Who cares? How many things do you have in your house that you just kind of let linger and not think about? So it doesn't seem like anything from Valyria survived. And so I could see somebody being like, Art of the Dragon? I don't know. Who would govern better, the Greens or the Blacks? Actually governing with the small folk and everything. I'm trying to think this through. Hello. You have arrived. You finished your video, man.
Bro, I was sleeping. How was the episode? Hopefully Rhaenys survived. No?
No, dude. She won. Yeah.
Bro, how the fuck does this dragon-
Aemond and Vhagar were killed. It was really like
how
total
does the
deviation
biggest
from the source
fucking
material.
dragon
I could not
sneak
believe
up?
it.
How does the biggest dragon like on Earth sneak up and do 2 sneak kills? How is
That's
that
what he does,
possible?
dude? He's a sneaky dragon. I mean, even before that, he was hiding in the woods, all incognito, complete, like no one knew he was there. Landed, covered
And like,
himself in dirt or
did Ryan
whatever.
Condal think he was being slick by like? Because Rhaenys at one point she's like, "Okay, he's out. I'm done. I'm walking back," and then she goes, and then turns around. Was he trying to be slick into giving like book readers a sliver of hope that she comes out alive?
No, I mean he must be thinking like show only fans or something. Or show, I think every book fan knows like what's coming. It's like the red
For a minute,
wedding.
he was like, "Is he gonna fucking?
Like, is he gonna have her survive?
Is he
Another
gonna have her
episode?
survive?" And then
No.
like, she gets killed later. Like, I don't know what's happening.
Who do you think would rule better, the Greens or the Blacks? I'm trying to think. Like, it's all about their small council, right? Who's got a better small council? I don't know if either of their small councils are very good, or like who would be on the Black small council in the end. You'd have like Manderleys and Starks and Aarons. and some darklings and stuff. I don't know. I don't think that. I don't think we have. Honestly, I don't think we have enough information to make the determination. Um, because and none of them are going to rule very well as long as them sneaky maesters are in the are around. Them sneaky maesters. Um, the This is German here. Yes, there is. We don't understand them. They're people from Bavaria. Checks out, or people from Bavaria checks out. Yeah, this is the different Germanic languages, um, which yeah are pretty incomprehensible with each other. The Yeah, one of the things that people kind of, at least as Americans, we don't really understand because in America everybody speaks English, and we're all taught English. We all learn English. It doesn't matter if you're in Hawaii. It doesn't matter if you're in Florida. It doesn't matter if you're in Maine. We all speak English for the most part. We have slight differences in our accents, but they're pretty slight. I mean, yeah, you can get like, okay, maybe there's some big difference between like a black American from San Diego and a white American from Maine, but for the most part, you know, quite strikingly, even though our country is huge, like our language is pretty homogenous. Um, while like in other European countries, they had to go through the motions of trying to nationalize their language. So like the language of Paris and the language of Toledo and the language of I think High German from Hamburg or something. Hanover, I think it's from Hanover. But like the they go through these campaigns to nationalize the languages, um, and convert everyone to one way of speaking, which is difficult, very difficult. But you know, how you doing, Carmine? How'd you like the episode like overall?
It was good, actually. I really love the collateral damage that the
Hmm.
soldiers were taking in,
Oh
because
yeah,
holy shit, it really is like one of those Clash of the Titans type situations where you better clear the fuck out of the way or you're gonna get fucked up. So
yeah.
it's
I mean,
I delivered.
I thought it was a good fight. I thought it was good CGI. You could understand everything that was going on. Like compare it to say, like compare this to say the dragon fight between Daenerys, Jon, and the Night King in the sky
we
during.
don't we don't we don't talk about those moments.
I know,
It's
but like
just
compare it to that,
ugh.
where you're like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like like
Yeah.
there's like a wing, and then it's something. You're like, like you very clearly knew the play by play, and so I give them props for that, that kind of uh storyboarding is important, and so I will say that it worked out. It worked out.
I think so too. Like so far, Ryan Condal has been doing a very good job when it comes to the action stuff. Definitely better from season one, But yeah, I felt bad for the dragons. I'm a big animal lover, so
Mm.
I hate hearing animals in pain, even giant fire breathing lizards. So
This reminds me of like George's blog post about blood and cheese and the dog.
oh
you know
yeah, he's hyper fixating on the dog.
Yeah, he really he was like, "Oh, what a great idea to have the dog," because like when they kick that dog, like this is how weird we are as humans, that we can become desensitized to like humans getting killed, but like somebody kicks a dog and everyone's like, "Oh my god, that asshole!" And it's like
That's
that's a
me.
dog.
That's 100% me. I am that guy.
Um, this is a random one, but have you ever seen the movie The Fly 2? No.
I'm sorry. Say that again. I was trying to listen in the
Have you
back on
seen
our
The Fly 2?
The Fly 2. There's a sequel. Is the first one the one with Jeff Goldblum?
Yeah. And this is a sequel
There's a
to Jeff Goldblum.
sequel? Oh
Yeah,
God.
it stars Eric Stoltz. It's really bad. But one of the weird things about the movie is there is a scene at the beginning where the villain is one of these like corporate scientists, right? Who like is running their lab. And he's doing animal testing on dogs, and the dogs are suffering, and so like that's establishing him as a villain. But at the end of the movie, he actually gets transformed into like a hideous monster and is left suffering in a like in the lab at the end, in this like worse, like fate worse than death kind of thing. But it's like, it's such a weird thing because it's like, wait a minute, so like cruelty to dogs is bad but cruelty to humans is okay, or only cruelty to humans once they've accepted the cruelty to dogs, like our standards are kind of off on it, like um or I think there's an Atlanta episode where the guy goes into the shooting range and he's shooting at a picture of a dog, and all the guys in the shooting range are like, "Oh my god, what are you doing?" And he's like, "You're shooting human beings. Like, what the hell? Like, there are wild dogs in my neighborhood that have rabies. You need to shoot them." But uh um I said to you years ago that playing at tyranny should have gotten Trump sent to the Tarpeian Rock. You rightly said that we need due process. Hindsight, I feel like there was no chance. Should have been no shot to survive a failed coup, alas. Yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird that that due process completely failed in this situation, because somehow you can choose justices that were late that three justices that will later.
Yo, what happened, by the way? Like, I just got here. You have 69 giggity dislikes on the video. What's going on? Technically, it's probably not really 69. You'll know the real
No.
dislike.
I
What'd
taunted
you
I
do?
taunted some right wingers to go onto their alt accounts and just downvote again. That was what happened. And so they went onto
Oh,
their alt accounts and downvoted again.
so basically, for those, did you explain like what
I
I
did.
told you?
I did.
Yeah.
I did how Carmen and I like went through and we were looking at videos, and yeah, like fake it was 90% of dislikes were
Actually,
fake.
no. Wait a minute. You can see, you and the audience can both see it here. So on the very top of the chat, you have 222 likes. You have 34 dislikes. If for those of you who have the return dislikes extension on your browser, you can see here 69, whoop, 70. That was me. I'm just kidding. So,
No, I
yeah.
think even these ones are alt accounts too, because it's just like
No, I don't
when
know
I
about
said to
that.
go to the alt accounts, then it started they started like heating up. So I think there's something. I think it's not quite. I mean, I understand what you're saying. There was like that plugin, that Chrome plugin we went through,
Hmm.
but yeah, but the ratio was like crazy because it was that Acolyte review that you did, and the fake dislikes were like 90% on it.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that. Hmm.
yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it's just like it's become. I mean, it's one of those things that's like now everyone. It's getting to the point where everybody knows about it. So now like likes and dislikes don't mean anything because
Right.
like people have faked them now.
Speaking
Um,
of outrage and bullshit, did you see the video I put out yesterday about, or 2 days ago, about George, how he had a new blog post, and who cares about that? But in it, he misgendered Emma
the one on
Darcy.
chocolate. You want to talk about the one on chocolate?
That's today. I'm talking about the one 2 days ago. Which, by the way, you have to notice he's been more active lately. I'm not saying that means wins is coming, but
He has been very active lately. It's true.
mm, but no. Did you see the whole like people giving George death threats?
Um, yeah. So Carmine. So George made a blog post the other day, and he accidentally called Emma Darcy she, right?
Yes,
And
instead of they them.
instead of her preferred pronoun of they them, and a few people went like a few people on Twitter, of course, like went buck wild. But of course, there's got to be people on Twitter doing that. I think like anybody, um, I think that any reasonable person knows that like people make mistakes, like they do slip ups, and like forgive people for that. Like I don't think like I accidentally misgender people all the time. Like it's just like
He
it's
misgenders
just
me. I mean, it's
I
not.
do, I know. But the thing is like I mean, it's not really fair because like we're raised in a society where we're taught from a young age,
We do
like
live in a
these.
society.
What I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah, you're right. We live in a society. Yes.
We live in a society from a young age. We learn these like various grammatical rules, and then we're told something that like later rightly that we should switch things up. But it's like we're still hardwired a certain way, so you're gonna slip up and you're gonna say things. Um, I mean, keep in mind that like, oh God, like I I did theater in high like. For, I'm trying to think of like when I switched over from like making fun of gay people to like realizing that that was really stupid. I think I was around 14 or 15 years old. I remember like around there, like being the switch where I was just like, huh, like this is really dumb. Like, and but the thing is like still, even as like a 47-year-old, like I will occasionally be
47?
like, what? Yeah.
Wait, hold on. You're 47?
You don't have to fucking focus on it. The
Dude,
the
I remember when you turned 41. I was like, damn, where did the time go? Oh my
oh
God. It's all
God,
right. It's
oh my
okay.
God. But like the point is that like every once in a while, still, like I'll catch myself and be like, oh my God, that's so gay. Like, and that still happens. And I've done that like in front of my gay friends. And I'd be like, immediately after being like, I'm sorry. And like, they're like, don't worry about it, dude. Like, like one, because they're of the same age and they kind of say the same sorts of things, but like, and occasionally slip up themselves despite the fact that they're gay, like, but George R. Martin, he's 75. He's 75 years old. He's nearly 76. Like, his brain, like he went through how many years, and then you're asking him to like not fuck up occasionally. Yeah, he's gonna fuck up, like but like for them to be that angry is just ridiculous. It's like,
That's what I said. And by the way, you also misgendered Emma Darcy. You said her pronouns instead of their pronouns.
you see, I
Aha!
right there, I fucked up. I
Ah!
fucked up right there. It's
But
really
but
hard.
but
It's really hard.
here's the thing I will say. Because in my video I said like I don't like how these people are treating George like he's some kind of creature from the Black Lagoon. Like
Mm.
George is a sweet old man. But what I don't like is how the moment these randoms get any attention, they want to go all in because I think
Oh
the
yeah.
main person got like 700,000 views on that tweet or some shit,
Mm.
and like stuff like this is like, for example, to name to quote a couple of it, Emma should be allowed to kill one transphobe a week. George is transphobe.
I
George
mean,
R. Martin,
that's
he needs to be held accountable for this. Like,
right.
come
I
on.
mean, these are people that clearly don't really care about the issue. They only care about making attention for themselves and like, because logically speaking, everyone knows that they must. If you took a step back, be like, oh, does this look good? Is this a good optics? It's not going to be. It's not good optics. So to be like bashing somebody for a mistype or a misspeak. I mean, come on.
By the way, you have the echo cancellation thingy on.
Yeah, yeah. People trashing, people saying there's an echo.
I mean, if you want to put on your headphones. But no, I think it's the internet. It's where nuance, intent, and context go to die. So
Yeah, but it's just it's why it's why Twitter is just a pile of crap. I mean, it has been for a long time, and it's only hasn't gotten any better. But it's just like, what are you gonna do? So Trump is a lump, but how does Joe win? Joe wins by people, voting, phone banking, donating, doing the regular things. You gotta remember that like, Joe Biden has a very good record. He's not Trump. We know things will be good under him. This idea that people care about him being old, like, it's manufactured from like they care about him being old in the same way as much as people care about Trump being old. Like it's manufactured by the media to get clicks. Some people have gotten caught hook, line, and sinker, like they're worried about it. But you know, it has to be Joe or it's Kamala. Like, and Kamala polls slightly worse than Joe. I mean, she's still a woman, and this is a very sexist country. So I do think that Joe has a better chance than Kamala because Kamala is a woman and Kamala is black. So, it's, Joe wins because he's not Trump and he has a very good record and he's a good man, you know. Like when you say like, oh, is anyone scared that like Joe Biden has immunity? Everyone's like, well, no, because we know he wouldn't do anything. Like, like it's just so intrinsic. Like even the Supreme Court justices, when they granted the immunity, like thought that Joe Biden wouldn't abuse it. But when you say like, oh, would Trump abuse immunity? Of course he fucking would. Like we all like know he will. Like, so like right there, you're just kind of like left with that stark comparison. Like we know Joe Biden is a good person and we know Trump is a bad person. We know Trump is going to abuse immunity and things are going to go off the rails and go crazy. And maybe people that run newspapers are like, haha, that's more clicks and more anxieties for us. But like, it's Joe wins by people calming the fuck down, and voting for him. And, hopefully that's what happens. But, right now, the only choice is so Joe, even if Biden drops out, like the only person, because of funding and the way like these super PACs and funds like are set up, only Kamala could get the same sort of money. Like you can't just randomly be like Gavin Newsom is the nominee, because all of this money and everything is set up for Biden Harris. You could have Kamala like pass it on, like because she's on the ticket, and she's linked, but she's the only one. So you're kind of sitting there like, well, what's your choice? Is it Joe or is it Kamala? But I don't, I think Joe Biden probably has a better shot than Kamala. But yeah, no, I mean he wins by people calming the fuck down, remembering that he's pretty much the same age as Trump. Trump is just as losing it more so than Joe Biden. Oh my God. Also, like this is what fucking like is crazy about this whole thing. Carmine, do you remember? I want to take you back 8 years. Do you remember all of the articles about how Hillary was on death's doorstep leading up to the election?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. People thought. I remember people trying to convince me that the Hillary we were seeing on TV, the healthy one, that's the clone.
Yeah.
She was the clone. Yeah. I remember.
You know how many articles they ran about Hillary dying, like being sick and dying? Like it was amazing. Like it's like we're all fucking in Groundhog's Day and no one remembers this shit. Like, this is all Hillary's emails again. Like the whole Joe Biden is old thing is Hillary's emails again. Like how many articles are about how old Joe Biden is and not how many are about how old Trump is? How many are about how Joe Biden like was confused in the debate, and how many are about how Trump doesn't make any fucking sense and is nuts and like makes slurs all the time as well? Or like, oh, Joe Biden needs to take naps. Don't we remember the fucking executive time? Like all the executive time that like Trump has? Like it's ridiculous. Like it's complete double standard. It's completely created. So hopefully this lasted a little longer than I thought. I thought in a week. I told Carmine like wait a week and everything would calm down. And it's almost calmed down. It might take another week, but I think it's calming down. There's only so many times you can run these articles. Joe's old. Oh, really? Oh, really? Oh my God, Joe's old. A growing number of Democrats. And you're like, really? You went there? There's like 500 people in Congress. Okay. So there's like 300, close to 300 Democrats, 200 and, I'm trying to, like half of the Senate plus half of the House, 270 or something. Like, when they're like, oh, like 2 people in the House, like 2 people out of 270 go against Joe. Like these are all fucking these are all these like clickbait stories. So, Obviously, I worry though. Obviously, Joe Biden's an old man. You know, like obviously. um, you can't compare gaps. Trump doesn't forget where he was in the middle of a sentence. Absolutely, he does. I don't know what fucking Trump you're talking about. Trump forgets where he is in the middle of a sentence all the fucking time. All the fucking time. Like, oh my God, like that is completely wrong. Watch a Trump rally. He fucking forgets all the fucking time and then starts rambling on about something else. Like in a stream of consciousness nothingness. He fucking forgets shit all the time. You know? Now I'm not saying that like Biden didn't look fucking stupid and horrible. Of course he did. But like Trump looks just as bad and no one is giving any attention to that. So I wish the dragons were fluffy like in the Neverending Story. Also, who deadlifts more, Small Paul or Hodor? I think Hodor, but I'm only basing that on when Ned thought about the largest men in Westeros, he thought about the Hound, the Mountain, and Hodor. And if he knew Small Paul, like I'm trying to think if he would have at some point, what if he have come across Small Paul? Maybe he just didn't know Small Paul existed. Let me see how big Small Paul is. I mean, it's hard because like that chapter was obviously written before Small Paul was invented as a character. Okay, so it says Small Paul is a large man, but he weighs less than Sam Tarly. And Sam Tarly is what, 20 stone? I mean, Sam Tarly is... I forget how many stone. Yeah, they said he's 20 stone. So Sam Tarly is 280 pounds. So Small Paul is not huge. If he weighs, 275 and he's all muscle, that's not huge. That's not a huge guy. Hodor is much bigger. Hodor is much bigger than Small Paul. Small Paul, like 275 pounds for like a muscle bound dude. It's not that much. Yeah. But yeah, if the dragons were fluffy like Falcor, that'd be something. Nate Silver wants to replace Biden because he's definitely gone down in the polls. Keep in mind that 538 is owned by ABC News. So I don't know. I mean, Nate Silver has a lot more faith in polls than I do. I mean, he should know that. I mean, he knows all this stuff, but Preston, you okay with the border situation under Biden? Border situation is really no different than before. I mean, it did go up under Biden, but then it immediately went down, like when Biden put on the cap on asylum. So no, I have no problem with the border situation. I also don't really think the border situation is a crisis. Like, America has 315 million people, 320 million people. And so if you're talking like there's like a certain number, like how, like what's the annual border crossings? And then a certain number of people like get deported. But you're talking like hundreds of thousands. I mean, it's a fraction of our population. It's not a crisis. Like say the number of people that crossed under Biden was like double than under Trump. I'm just making this up, but like say it was double. Like you're talking about an extra couple 100,000 immigrants in the country, like for a population of 320 million. Like that's not noticeable. It's not a crisis. It's a made up issue. Do you understand? Like it's just we've got lots of undocumented workers in America. Lots of them. Millions. In fact, I think There's like over 20 million undocumented. Like a few 100,000 more. It doesn't do anything. Like, what's the crisis? Like, tell me what the crisis is. Like, how is this how is this a negative? But so no, I'm not worried. Aid making aid to Ukraine making rich in the military industrial complex money for good for Americans suffering while violent illegals keep trafficking. Violent. First of all, immigrants and illegal immigrants have a lower rate of violence than the domestic population. So I don't know I don't know. Whoa. Like, assuming this is really shitty, dude. All right. I'm calling you out here. Okay. I'm really calling you out. First of all, calling them illegals. Like, just call them undocumented. Like, you don't have to, like, illegals. Like, you're trying to use this degrading term for them. Okay. But calling them violent. No. They're less violent than citizens. So it's completely wrong. Completely wrong, dude. You have a really fucked up belief structure of who these people are. These are people, largely the ones at the border that everyone's talking about are the ones that are applying for asylum. That's actually legal immigration. Asylum is legal. So you're not even making a very logical argument, because, like, first of all, like, people crossing illegally aren't the ones at the border. They're the ones that have crossed already and are in the country. The ones sitting at the border are ones applying for asylum. That's legal. Like, your whole structure on how you're thinking about things is really fucked on how you perceive, like, people from other countries and and stuff like that. That's just fucked up. Okay. All for aid making the military industrial complex rich. Like, this is what our weapons were for, dude. Like, Ukraine is a fucking noble cause. If there is ever a fucking cause to give our weapons to, it's fucking Ukraine, man. Like, making people rich. Like, what do you think? What are they for? What are they for? You're picking, like, the most noble place to send the weapons. This Ukraine. Like, why would I be upset about that? So yeah, this is just, here we go. Valerie got to it quicker, but yes, I'm some other people call this out. Like, it's amazing. Plot twist: Alice Rivers is a barn owl, and the barn owl is time traveling Bran. What did you think of the barn owl, man? What did you think of Alice Rivers this episode, Carmine?
She's pretty good. I enjoyed the character. The accent, though, I gotta figure out where she's from. That accent is a little off. I don't hate it, but
it's Scottish. It's a Scottish accent.
There it is.
Yeah,
have we gotten Scottish people before in Game of Thrones?
There's got to be some, right? Let's see here. Oh, the Hound. The Hound's Scottish. I'm not sure you put on a Scottish accent, though. Kate Dickey is Scottish, but she was definitely not using her Scottish accent. Rose Leslie is Scottish. And G.R. Mormont and Ian Glenn are both Scottish. Man, there's fucking Scottish all over the place, man.
They did not have that accent when they were doing the
No, it's very clear that Ian Glenn was putting on a very British accent. But Rose Leslie kind of, she kept her Scottish accent. But I'm trying to think of anybody. I think I know you may not know his accent, but Ilan Payne is Scottish as well. But yeah, there's a score of Scotsmen, and I've heard Kate Dickey's like real accent, and it's very different than the one she put on. Um, but I think they're playing. It's funny how what they do with the Scottish accent. I wouldn't know how to feel about it if I were Scots, because like they're always using the Scottish accent for like the weirdo, the north of the wall savage. Like this is a witch, right? And she's got to be like Rose Leslie using her Scottish accent. It's because, oh well, she's a wildling, so she's gonna be like, she's a savage, so she's gonna have a Scottish accent. Um, and so in this situation, they're like, oh well, she's like a weird woods witch and stuff, so she's gonna have a Scottish accent. They it's always the accent of the other, um, in these dramas. So I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I have to ask like Scottish people if they care, like if it, like why certain accents are used at certain times, or maybe it's just random. And I'm reading into it. But I mean, when someone like Kate Dickey like purposely turns off her Scottish accent for like there's reasons for it, right? Huh. But yeah, the barn owl it was kind of a funny. It was out of left field kind of uh little like joke. So I actually did chuckle. I was like, "What was that? I'm a barn owl." I actually did laugh during that scene. Um, how did you become friends with Trey? How did we become friends, Carmine? Well, Carmine is very good at just reaching out to people and being like, "Hey, let's talk."
It's less I'm good at that, and people just decide to reach out to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, yeah. I think Trey reached out to me.
Okay, okay. Yeah, no, I know. So Trey was a. I mean, he had his own channel, and Trey is very successful. He's more successful than we are. But he was a closet Ice and Fire fan, and so he was like huge into our into both of our channels before we kind of knew him. And so I guess he reached out to you first, Carmine, and then
Yes, and I
um,
introduced you. I usually,
yeah.
whenever these people reach out to me, I have to vet them to make sure they're not fucking crazy. Because yeah, motherfuckers crazy out there.
Stop misgendering Vagar, please. You're right. Vagar is a she, kind of, or is it a they them? The problem is that like Vagar has never told us what she prefers. Like the rest of the world assumes that it's a female because I imagine because she laid eggs, it laid eggs, but you know we don't know what Vagar would want. You know, who knows? Who knows how Vagar identifies? Um, Rhaenys won the Council of 101. Everything is well. Yeah, it's true. Um, everything probably would have been. Everything would have been great. Well, okay. Alternate universe, like okay, Rhaenys wins the Council of 101. Everything's going great. She'd still be alive and queen. Um, but then, I mean, would it be a problem eventually? Would Laenor's homosexuality eventually be a problem? Like when it came time for him to become king? Um, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't going to be a problem with Renly, I guess. So, um, I've been a Preston fan for years. Pick me, pick me. Okay, comments right. PNC, are there any new theories to be theorized? PNC. What do you think PNC stands for, Carmine?
Probably both of our names.
Oh, Preston and Carmine. That makes sense. Are there any new theories to be theorized? In general, in the written material, I think there's still plenty to that people have never talked about. Like, first of all, like Fire and Blood is a fairly untouched book. Like, very few people have made many theories about stuff that goes on in it. Like for instance, like I did a stream a few weeks ago about whether or not I thought um, Luther Largent was in league with Laris, and stuff like that. No one ever talks about it. No one ever talks about Fire and Blood. So there's plenty of theories to be had. Now, in the original series, a lot of people talk about it being milked dry, but I think there are some theories related to the Boltons that no one has ever really kind of gotten into. I mean, besides bolt-on theory, I don't think people have really spent much time like slowly going over like what the Boltons are up to and making sense of what they're doing. Trying to think of anything else really like that really sticks out to me as a region that people haven't really focused on. But that's the main one. Was that I don't think there's been enough examination of the Boltons. And maybe I don't think there's been a good examination of the wildling tribes and like and their possible allegiances and what would happen at the wall, if certain people died and say the Shield Hall and who would have taken control. I don't think enough analysis has been done on the control of the towers along the wall, and if there was a war, who would be which towers would be fighting whom and things like that. I mean, I think I've heard some talk, but hardly anything. So there's still a lot. There's still a lot to be theorized out there. So did you really sleep, or were you joking about waking up?
No, of course I caught it. Yeah,
Okay, okay,
crazy,
okay,
crazy.
okay. What's the topic in most need of new theories? Trying to think of I mean, there's also a lot of stuff that like I've covered that like no one else has really spent much time like examining. Like, yeah, I did my time traveling brand series, and I. What's strange is that there aren't a million more of those. Like there should be, right? Like it should be have picked apart. Like time traveling brand should be picked apart as much as the Pink Letter. You know, people should be like examining these moments in John with the werewood, or Ghost with the werewood in the Clash of Kings and things like that, and what it means and things like that. But we don't see it too much. So I do think that there's plenty. But when you think of how important like time travel is to the story, why wouldn't there be more examination of time travel, considering it's such a huge thing? Like you start thinking about like how many threads of conversation were dedicated to who the three heads of the dragon are. And how much or how many threads are dedicated to like who the perfume seneschal is versus who the sun's son is, and all this. Like so much time has been dedicated to that kind of stuff, and just not that much to something major like time travel. I also don't think people have really handled Patchface very much. Because Patchface is just so hard that it just seems chaotic that no one has just bothered even looking at Patchface. Mm, mm. I'll never forget Preston's age because he's my mom's age. um,
Oh, Moon Man also wanted me to answer that question. Are there still any new theories out there? We got
yeah.
to have an actual law name for this. I don't want it to be Carmine's law, but like I've said before, and I'll say it again. anything you can theorize or you think of has probably already been written down somewhere on Reddit by some random person 10 years ago. I
Yeah.
think there's really not much more to tap. Preston is a special case because he's like super hyper aware of certain things. But for the most part, I don't really think I can't think of anything else out there. Like off the
Yeah.
top of my head, not really. Like
So
patch face has already been done to death, homie. Like I can think of like three patch face theories off the top of my head right
yeah.
now.
Well, it's
That
always
he's the
of
Lord
like
of Light
one
secretly
thing,
or
you
something.
know. Yeah. Biden is 81. I mean, this is something I didn't say. So, George R. Martin is 75. His brain is rotten, and so you can't blame him. Biden is 81. Um, that doesn't mean his brain is rotten. No, I mean, I think I've very clearly said that like Joe Biden is old. So is Trump. So is George R. Martin. George R. Martin has a lot more together than both Trump and Joe Biden. But also keep in mind that like these people rule by committee. You rule by with all of your advisors and all of your people and all the people that you bring with you. Like um, Trump is bringing a horrible batch of disgusting right wingers and like opportunists and like who are just out of control. In fact, if it were just Trump by himself, like I don't think he'd be able to come up with any like come up with the ideas to harm America. But unfortunately, he brings all of that baggage with him, um, which is the disgusting thing. Where I'm talking about teams of people, like really in the end, like Trump and Biden, it kind of doesn't matter who they are because it's about the packs of people they bring with them. George R. Martin, he has a lot more together, but keep in mind when he writes a book, it's just him. It's just him. When he writes a blog, it's just him. Like it, he doesn't even have the minions do any of that. All right, it's just him. So this is huge. This is a huge big difference between this. So you're comparing apples and oranges now. So like one, don't put things in my mouth. Like old people are old people. Okay, we've all met old people. All right, like, but we're talking about like the you know the teams that come with it. Um, Kamal literally smells like sulfur. All right, Brendan, I think you're done. Like it's just not you're just not being productive. All right, So I'm sorry, dude, but it's just like I mean, like you're really pushing it with the like calling immigrants violent, and like like making random jokes about like people being the devil. Like no, it's just dumb. It's just I'm not in the mood. Um, when George gets sick and starts losing weight, he should wear Viserys' golden mask. Uh, oof. Um, I also thought Biden was only supposed to run for a single term. That's actually a myth. He actually never said that. Somehow that got like put in media narrative and stuff, but he never said that. Like, I understand that like people are like, oh, I mean, I remember hearing that like around the time of his running too, but it was never something that he actually said. Um, let's see. Make those undocumented immigrants pay taxes, give them documents, and get healthcare system. Problem solved. I mean, a lot of them do pay. A lot of them do pay taxes, but I know what you're saying. But it's actually one of the things that people talk about, like the structure of our social security system and Medicaid and Medicare, where you kind of need a younger population to support the older population, and when the it's inverted, you've got some serious problems. And so, um, yeah, I mean, you kind of we need The idea is, you need immigration. I think our America's replacement rate is higher than some countries, but it's 1.6. I mean, it's a hell of a lot better than say Taiwan or Korea that are point 0.8. But you know, this idea that we need fewer immigrants is not really one that makes sense. Um, at this point, it seems like the Democrats think Biden has become a liability. I think we'll be voting for Kamala. MSNBC and New York Times made sure this story didn't blow over in a week. They're hysterical. I completely agree with you. I mean, it may be that people fall for it, and we'll be voting for Kamala. I mean, I'll vote for anyone. I'll vote for any Democrat over any Republican. It's
So I don't know if you know this, but I saw someone on Reddit uh, basically point out that a majority of the Democrats fearful and want to replace Biden articles are coming from Fox News.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and like I say, all of these news organizations are run by Trump supporters. I mean, that's the weird thing about the New York Times, the famously liberal um, paper, is
Dude,
somehow
they're pissed. Like they hate
Mhm.
Biden. I
They
don't know
hate
what
it.
the
They
fuck
do.
is up with them. Someone theorized that because Biden won't give him an interview, like the editor is just pissed and he's just going after this fucking
Yeah,
guy. Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can compare it. I mean, there are some, like when you compare it to like the Washington Post, which is, not that they don't have plenty of anti-Biden articles, but like when you compare the two, it's just like, well, one has three times as many. Um, so it's kind of over the. I mean, it's very noticeable, and now we're all attuned to it because it's like we all remember the Hillary's emails thing, and the fucking Hillary is sick and dying thing, and now we're like, well, what the fuck? Like you're doing this again, as if we don't remember like what happened 8 years ago.
real quick, because I really don't want to like touch on the whole Biden thing that much.
Yeah.
Personally, you do whatever you want. Um, remember what I told you a couple weeks back about that guy, Alan Lichtman, who does the predictions? He's gotten the
Mm.
last like 20 elections correct, except for 2000. But that
Yeah.
was some fuckery about. He believes that if the Democrats are to win in this year, Biden needs to stay on the ticket
Um.
because one of the keys to the
Yeah.
White House is being the incumbent.
Right. Being the incumbent. I mean, he like you say, he's got a lot of things. He's a white male. He's the incumbent. He has a lot of connections. Um, Kamala. I mean, people don't know very much about Kamala, but like that's the thing. She's a black woman, and people are sexist. Like that just goes. That's just the way things are. And people try to deny that they're sexist, but then, my God, like, so did you watch the Lindsay Ellis Yoko Ono video?
I haven't seen it yet, no, but Lindsay Ellis has this like weird ability to make me care about random ass topics I wouldn't
Oh
give a
my
fuck about
God.
normally, like the Phantom at the Opera thing. Have you seen that
Oh yeah.
video? So good.
Oh,
So
so I
good.
mean, I think it was on her other site for a while, Nebula for a while, but she released her Yoko Ono video, and I mean, it's incredible. Like I'm just like, oh my God, like because it's one of these things that I didn't even think about, and I was just like, oh right, like the story that Yoko broke up the Beatles, and it's just like once you stop and observe, like think about it, you're like, that is patently absurd. Like it's absolutely absurd that Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles. Like, and I know a lot about the Beatles, and like, but even me, like in that, like I wouldn't have blinked an eye at somebody saying it, but now I'm like examining it. I'm like, that's idiotic. Like that is like just straight up sexism that like Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles. Like that is because it's just such a completely dumb narrative. Like like the Beatles were like arguing over so many things, like leading up to their breakup, dealing with like money and rights and agents and who owns songs and allowing George Harrison to have more songs on their albums and things like this. There's so many things. Um, the idea that Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles is just so dumb. But I'd never sat back and just been like, oh my God, I never examined that.
We got to be fair here, though. We have to be
Yeah.
fair about Yoko. Yoko is also kind of an asshole, especially when
Mhm.
she apparently Julian Lennon had to buy the letters he wrote to his father. Does Lindsay address that? in her video?
Yeah, I think there's some bits. I mean, she definitely goes on into Yoko at different times. Like she definitely says like, yes, absolutely. Like Yoko was an opportunist. Of course she was. So was John Lennon when he married her. They knew what they were getting into and they were trying to advance their careers. Of course. And of course the Beatles had their problems with the other Beatles had their problems with Yoko. Of course they did. Of course, like John Lennon used Yoko Ono to annoy the other Beatles. Like, of course those things happened. But the idea that Yoko Ono is the thing that broke up the Beatles is ridiculous. Like it's, I mean, so one of the big things about like the Beatles is that so John and Paul invented a company called Apple, where they said anything written by either one of us is co-written by us. And we split the profits. Okay. So you can understand like right from the beginning, like that sounds a little off. Like, so a song completely written by Paul gets Lennon writing credit and something completely written by John gets Paul writing credit. And so like the minute one guy starts doing more songs and one guy starts doing less songs and things like this happen, like it's a big issue. And it started getting into some other like rights and stuff, especially because like Brian Epstein, the Beatles manager, dies at some point. And they have to get a new manager who's trying to renegotiate royalties and things like this. It started becoming a real headache for them. And George Harrison at the same time is like demanding more songs, and they're limiting him to only 2 songs per album. And so you have all of these things kind of like, of course it's the money stuff. Of course it's the business money stuff that breaks them up, not Yoko and like John, like going off and doing weird things, with her in bed or whatever. Like, of course. But like the idea that like, it's an incredible video. I mean, Lindsay Ellis really gets into the details. But it's like the number of times I'd heard like people say something completely like derogatory and horrible about Yoko Ono, being like, oh, the bitch broke up the Beatles. You're just like, oh God.
So I have to ask you because I haven't seen the Lindsay Ellis video. I will. I enjoy Lindsay
Hmm.
Ellis's essay videos. Does she bring up Chuck Berry?
Chuck Berry does come up because the Beatles worship Chuck Berry. I remember Chuck Berry does come
Right.
up.
So for those of you who don't know, John Lennon loved Chuck Berry,
Yeah.
and the moment John Lennon got to sing on stage with Chuck, Yoko was there,
Hmm.
and she fucking ruined the whole experience. In fact, look up the video for yourself. It's John
Hmm.
Lennon and Chuck Berry duet was destroyed by Yoko Ono. Now, even if you love or hate her, you still have to. We all have to come to an agreement that
Yeah.
when two people are singing and someone is screeching like a banshee, that's just not
Yeah.
fun to listen to. And that's what she was
at
doing.
the same
You can
at the
look it up,
same
Harley.
time, man. At the same time, like Yoko Ono's voice is probably heard more than you think. The song like "Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year." That's Yoko.
Hmm.
Like, and you hear that every year, and you don't think about it. Like,
I'm so confused. So how come she's like singing normally, and then in the Chuck Berry, seriously, I can link it to you. You can play it.
I know, I understand. Yeah, I get it.
I'm not making a joke to the audience. This is not exaggeration. She is screeching like she's like haunting a house.
Hmm.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I get
I feel
it.
so bad for John Lennon. Like he's finally
But
able to get
no,
on
but
stage with
he
somebody he
knew what he was
admires.
getting into, man. Like, don't you understand that? Like first of all, like he was looking. So John Lennon was looking for legitimacy. Like he wanted to be the artistic guy, right? He was so. Everyone knows Paul has all the catchy songs, and John has like the artistic, right? And then George has the super artistic, right? It's like John wanted to be seen as like a real artist. So he found Yoko, who by the way, Yoko at the time was a very famous in her field, like a very famous artist, Dadaist like artist in the New York scene. And like he wanted to be seen as legitimate. He wanted to be seen as artsy. So he's the one that like sought her out, you know? Like it's not like Yoko was like, you know, casting a spell on him because she was somehow like super pretty and or something like you're taking all agency away from John Lennon. Like John Lennon didn't know exactly what he was fucking doing, like by going with like
But
Yoko
let's
Ono.
also be fair here. Yoko should have had the insight to know that how much John admires Chuck Berry, and for her to just sit it out and shut the fuck up, right?
I mean,
If my significant other is meeting
I'm not
someone
look,
they've
I'm not
admired,
making the argument that Yoko Ono is not an asshole sometimes. Of course she
I know.
is.
I'm
But
but
we're
I'm just
talking
saying,
about,
like,
did she break up the Beatles?
I know, but I'm just saying,
No.
like, she should have had the force, or at least the
Keep
common
in mind that
sense to like step back.
John Lennon was also an asshole. Like, and I love John Lennon, but he's like, knowing history of him, he's a dickhead. Like, he's a really big dickhead. And in many ways, Yoko Ono, like him being with Yoko was kind of just this big troll move. Like, I'm a troll, but he knew what he's doing. But come on. But it's a great video nonetheless. We got distracted here. But I wish Alice called herself a bat instead of an owl. That would have been, they did show the bats last week. I'm trying to think of something else that would have, like, why they picked the owl, the barnyard owl, um, on anything. But um, in the books, isn't Sunfire more of a factor in the fight? I think absolutely. They in Fire and Blood, they kind of talk about it like it's a 2-on-1 situation versus a one huge one and one tiny little dragon. They always kind of say that that Sunfire was like, big, even though he grew fast, I guess. But I don't necessarily think there's like the huge size difference. If Rhaenyra wins 101 primogenitors, if Rhaenys wins 101, male primogenitor is abolished, and Rhaenys is queen, and again all is well, and we still get King Consort Daemon because Rhaena. Let me think about. Oh yeah, because I guess if male oh. Here's the thing: is if Rhaenys wins 101, it's still male primogenitor, because her legitimacy is coming through her father Aemon. So there would be probably another question of succession when Laena versus Laenor came up, because we're still talking about the first male. But Rhaenys has the children of the first male thing going for her, because it's not really like exactly a woman over a man situation. It's a a woman from the first male over a male from the second male situation. So it is still primogenitor, but the fact that, like, if Aemon had been king, she would have been queen because she was an only child. But because he wasn't, and then we're talking about, because it was her versus Balon first, and so it was like child of the first versus like a male second. So I don't think it shifts things too much. I think if Rhaenys is made queen, but someone might bring up later if Laena would have precedence over Laenor. But I don't think 101 really establishes much precedence, like, one way or the other. I mean, 101 only comes back once later, and that is to put Viserys II on the throne ahead of Daemon Blackfire's mom. No, what's her name? I'm forgetting my and that's the thing about these rules. Is it Dana? Was it Dana? Yeah, it's Dana. It was Viserys the second over Dana. Is the only time the Council 101 is ever and precedent actually ever comes in as effective. Um, so I don't know. I think I guess there's just constantly like every generation it seems like there's there's a succession crisis. Otto and Viserys should have wed Rhaenyra to Alicent. Um, I think it depends if we're going like book versus show. Because Rhaenyra to Alicent, that probably would have, it might have worked out in the show. People might have been open to it. I don't know if people would have been open to it in the book, but I'm trying to think of Rhaenyra to Alicent if this would have. But then where are they getting their sperm for the? This is the problem: is that two women can't produce a true-born child. Um, so it's tough. Um, if they can only have bastards. So, all right, getting to the end here because it's getting late. The head boop Sunfire gave Aegon was heartbreaking. Yeah, that was kind of the first time we saw Sunfire up close, and there was kind of this like um, smile and happiness that Aegon had for the dragon, as if like it's the only thing that really loves him in the world. And I think it was a really beautiful scene. Do you know what I'm talking about, Carmine? Where Aegon comes in and uh
Yeah, in the dragon pit.
yeah, in the dragon pit. But it's like the first time we really see him with his dragon, and he's like so happy, and the dragon looks happy to see him. And it's like it's kind of this moment where it's like Aegon's with the only thing that loves him, because his mom doesn't give a fuck about him, grandfather doesn't give a fuck about him, like nobody gives a fuck about Aegon except for Sunfire. And that was kind of this beautiful moment. I kind of wish they had more of that, because if he is such a longing guy who's longing for love, shouldn't he be going to the dragon pit all the time and saying hi to Sunfire? I wish they had more scenes like that, like before, you know. um yeah, it was a nice scene, and they should have had more of that, because now when he's like in pain about his like dragon being like, you know injured and all this sort of stuff, and he could have trauma, and that could be part of it. Anyway, I liked that scene. But Preston and Carmine, what about Stannis theories all tapped out? Certainly the Battle of Ice is very, very heavily done. I will say that there might be some other things related to Stannis that people haven't gone into as much, like maybe Edric Storm kind of stuff, or um, House Florent or something. But I mean, I think with the Battle of Ice and all of that, that's been done to death. Like we can do all that. But can you think of anything else that we like anything where Stannis has like not been covered? Because people love their Stannis.
People love the Stannis stuff. People like the lamp maneuver that he
Yeah.
might be using against the Boltons. I've seen a theory, stupid theory, about Edric being his son.
Mm-hmm.
Or what's the one? Robert cursed Stannis by fucking on his bed on the wedding night. Know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. 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 Whether
You
whether
know,
he's yeah.
a lot of the theories with Stannis really involve Patchface being like a major thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I suppose patch. I mean, some people talk about patch face, but it's
the
tough.
community's tapped out, homie. There's really not much else to go off of. Like if a new book pops out, then oh my god. But for the most part, there's really not anything else going on. I don't know. Preston, you think of the theory off the top of your head
Of something new with Stannis.
of anything? Let me make this very clear to anybody who's listening. Character A secretly being character B is lazy.
No, no, no. I think I when asked before. I think Fire and Blood is largely untouched. I think there's a million theories in Fire and Blood that you can pick a page and start talking and look at the events and try to figure out what's going on and what really went on and what it means. I think there's a lot you can do with Fire and Blood. I don't know if George was actually thinking about any of it because he was just writing, but one could do theories all day long on Fire and Blood. Um, so there's that's completely untouched. Um, but with regards to the main series, like I say, I said I think there's some Bolton stuff that could possibly be theorized, like tribes of the wildlings or something that hasn't been looked at. I'm just thinking of like possible like series that I could do, but I'll probably never get around to doing. Um, Stuff like that. I think there's been some good analysis of Harrenhal, but I think you could probably go back and do Harrenhal again and come to different conclusions. Um, so, but there's a lot. Um, can we talk about the Trump and the recent Epstein documents? I saw articles coming out about this, that there was a release of documents that said like, Donald Trump was in contact with him. The but the problem is that like we kind of knew that. We knew that Trump hung out with Epstein. Lots of people hung out with Epstein. I don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily prove anything with regards to like Trump um doing anything. A lot of people just went to parties, I don't think every person that went to I don't think every person that rode on his plane or went to a party was involved with sex trafficking. So, yeah. So unless there's some greater proof, I don't think too much of it. Um, and all right, finally making it to the end, making it to the end. As my voice goes. Hillary should be finishing her second term, and Trump would likely be in prison. But emails and Comey. Did you know Trump tried to buy the Bills in 2013? I didn't know that about. I didn't know he tried to buy the Buffalo Bills in 2013. Yeah, it's all too bad that Hillary didn't win. Would have been a totally different world. Kind of like if Gore were president, things would have been so much better. But here we are. Here we are. Did Alice serve Daemon some kind of Jojen paste? That was a really weird scene where he just like loses a day, right? I'm not really don't really know what to make of it. Like what he could have possibly been doing or why blanked out or whatever. Was it supposed to be sweet sleep or something? I don't know. I know you did a series on it, but I feel like there's so much more that hasn't been explored theorizing on in the Brienne chapters in A Feast for Crows. So much more going on there. I mean, there's definitely, I will say there's a lot of theorizing on the Brienne story. At least at least with regards to the Squishers and with regards to the Quiet Isle, there's a lot. But very little on, say, like who those children, like are the children anybody at the end of the crossroads. Who Septon Maribald is really, the what's going on with like the plans of Randall Tarley, things like that. So I think there could be more. be done. Um, is she suicidal because kids all dead? Corley's cheating. Plus Corley's cheating. Yeah, I mean, it may be part of it that her kids are dead, but her kids have been dead for years, and she does have Bela and Rhaena in her life, and so like she doesn't need to be, she was effectively Bela's mom, um, so it's kind of irresponsible for her to kill herself, considering that she was like raising the kids. Plus, she was still trying to do things like push for Bela or for Rhaena to be Lord of Driftmark. There's a lot of unfinished business that she could have done. Yeah, Biden needs to focus his aids on abortion and women's right to birth control. That's a winning. He should also run ads showing all of Trump's gaffes. I agree. I'm completely down. I completely agree with you. I think that historically people have shied away from abortion as an issue, but I think it's definitely a winner in America right now. And yeah, I completely agree with that assessment. And I think I don't live in a swing state, so I don't know what and I don't watch TV, like, so I don't know what kind of ads are on TV or what kind of ads come out. So, um, yeah, Kansas. I'm not sure what people see in Kansas, Carmine.
Me neither.
um, the if Rhaenys didn't go for Vagar, she risked him going for her grandchildren. That's a fair assessment. That's a fair assessment. That she needed to take out that dragon before there was a different dragon battle with yeah, absolutely. Um um you don't worry about Biden's low approval rating. Wouldn't any other Dem be a safer option? I don't know if at this point, only because, like I say, the like funding and everything, and being the incumbent, um, your Biden has that advantage. You can't just transfer everything over. We're kind of pot committed to either Biden or Kamala. Um, but the one thing about when you say like safer options, you got to remember that like the Republican disinformation machine is brutal, and they will find something on you and they will create a narrative. A lot of people are like, "Oh no, Bernie is such a better option." No, like the minute Bernie would be the nominee, they'd be like communist, 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 and it would be like the thing. They will find something. The fact that like you're this far in on Biden and the best they have on him is he's old. Like this is the only criticism they have of Biden, right? Like he doesn't have any affairs. He has only policies that everyone really likes, essentially. Like he's done a good job the past 4 years. Like the fact that the only thing they have on him is he's old is pretty impressive. And so when you're taking somebody else, like some other Democrat, like of course they're going to have baggage. But the eye isn't on them at the moment. So you think they're all pure and clean and more popular, but they're not really. Like you got to remember, like they will put them through the ringer. Like people are like, "Oh, everybody likes Buttigieg." Like Buttigieg is a gay guy. Do you think that like the Republican mechanism wouldn't start like showing stories about him being like some deviant who's been going to like orgies? Do you think that like wouldn't
Well,
happen?
with Buttigieg, there's a video out there of someone voting for him. This older woman, she voted for him, and then she found out he was gay, and she
Yeah.
wanted to take her vote back. This was a Democrat.
Yeah.
So
And like Of course that stuff happens. Like, like I mean, you got to remember how low they go. Like, do you remember when John Kerry, fucking war hero who went to Vietnam, volunteered to go to Vietnam, did 2 tours, and they started like, they'd have the swift boating campaign where they're like, he like he made a big deal out of his shrapnel in his butt, and like his purple heart isn't anything. And he's like, they had this whole thing about how he wasn't a real war hero, like trashing him, like trying their best. Like I say, Hillary is on death's door. Hillary's emails, like they will have something. And if they don't have anything, they will make something up. So when you say like, would another Democrat be a safer option? I don't think so. Like, I don't like obviously I'd love Biden to be 10 years younger, obviously. But like, do I think somebody else is safer? No. They will find something on them and trash them. And it'll be just as bad. Like, you can't go panicking every time the Republican machine like comes out with something on somebody, So, and granted, obviously Biden walked right into it by having that horrible debate performance. But like, first of all, like, no one cares about debates. Like, no one watches debates. Like, why is this a thing? So yeah, it's just, they've done Hunter to death. That's all they could do. That's all they could do is try to get Hunter. They couldn't find anything on Biden, so they have to go for Hunter. Biden has been showing signs of dementia. I mean, Trump shows signs of dementia. Of course. He's 81. Of course. And despite all of that, he's probably safer than a nobody. He's probably safer than anybody else. Yeah, that's pretty. I remember believing John Kerry was a fake warrior. I was 12. Yeah. Yeah, they will make shit up. Yeah, we also wish George was 10 years younger. Voter motivation, intentions, beliefs are weird. I know an old black lady who did not vote for Obama because she was afraid he would get shot. Huh. Yeah, I can see that. People just being weird. Pull Jon Stewart out last minute. Do you not know that Jon Stewart's Jewish? Like, do you think that like that's not going to be seen? Like, they will find something. Bernie's 10 times more coherent than both. Probably, yeah. I do think that Bernie is pretty coherent for his age. It's surprising. Obviously I'd love somebody to be, just as slick as Gavin Newsom. Like, I'd love for Biden to be just as slick as Gavin Newsom. I do. But, it's a toughie. We do a series on the birth of dragons, specifically Danny's experience with Mir Mazdur. I was planning a series on like the actual elements of what hatches dragons, like going dragon by dragon, instance by instance. But so many things on my plate that it's really hard. So. Is it said as old as fuck too? Yeah, they're all old. They're all fucking old. Trump is 78. Biden's 81. How old? What's Bernie's age? I mean, these other things, like, do you remember when Carmine, do you remember when the senator froze up? The one from Kentucky.
Fuck. Mitch McConnell.
Do you remember he froze up? Day later, it's over. It's done. These people are
Trump
all
goes back and forth on Mitch McConnell. Even though Mitch McConnell gave him his Supreme Court, Trump wants to have a tribunal with him and Liz Cheney.
Yeah. Yeah, Bernie's the same age as Biden. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, Trump's got to live us all. It's the thing about evil, right? You know, I mean, uh, Henry Kissinger made it to like 101. I mean, come on. Yeah, apologize on behalf of my state for Mitch. Yeah, well, the funny thing about all of the states that you got to remember is that even in the most crimson of states, and even in the most liberal of states, you're not really getting numbers that are over like 60-40, which means like on a day-to-day basis, like, yeah, maybe you'll see more Trump signs or Biden signs or whatever, but there's still plenty of liberals and conservatives wherever you exist, for someone to hang out with, so it's Jimmy Carter is almost 100 and he's evil. No, I mean, the yeah, yeah, I can't believe he still made it. I guess you're right. There's no correlation. If Jimmy Carter's got a very kind soul, and he's about to make it to 100. Because when's his birthday? His birthday. Oh my gosh, Jimmy Carter's birthday is October 1st. He's only got a few more months to go to 100. So something to look forward to. Good old Jimmy Carter making it to 100. All right. My my remind Daemon the hero, ETA, Aemond the hero. Yeah, I mean, Daemon the hero will eventually happen. But it's just there's so many things on the plate right now that it's hard. It's hard for. I mean, with other things outside of like.
That's his story, though. This season, right? It's to because if you saw the episode 5 preview,
Oh,
Alice
but I was
Rivers.
talking. So, Daemon the Hero is a series I had that I'd started. I got about five
Oh,
minutes
I thought you
into
were
it,
talking about the character for House of the Dragon.
if you read it from the other side, that like Daemon, if you actually like go through each of the things that actually like paints Daemon as evil, one by one, you can kind of go, well, wait, that's a made up story. That's a made up story. What do we actually know about Daemon? And Daemon is actually, when you actually examine his life, incredibly dutiful to his father, his brother, Rhaenyra, that he's actually like more of a hero character if it wasn't for people just making up lies. So, it would have been a good series. I just wish, I'm just so fucking busy. I'm sorry.
You're probably going to get your wish because, like I was saying, I think that's what Ryan Condal is trying to do with Damon. Is that they set up the conflict between him and Rhaenyra, and throughout this entire season, he's going to get like I think Alice is going to try to manipulate him into betraying Rhaenyra, and I think
Yeah.
towards the end of the season, when she meets up with him again, we're all going to be like, "Is he going to betray her? No, he's not. He's not going to betray her."
So Ryan Condal in the inside the episode mentioned the quote from the Rogue Prince, not Fire and Blood, from the Rogue Prince,
Which
that
one
Daemon was,
specifically?
yeah, that Daemon was equal parts good and evil, which of course, like, if you believe all of this, like you're like, well, what's the good part? Like, there's nothing actually in the history besides facing Aemond. Like, what's the good part? Like, if you're really gonna believe that he like assassinated Laenor and like did sex lessons and killed the son of the Sea Lord of Bravos in cold blood and all of these different things about him and like assassinated a child. How can you believe that he's equal parts good and evil? Like, what are the good parts? Like, right? And
He was
so
loyal.
that's the thing is he's loyal. He's very dutiful. If you actually look at his life, um, he Damon did nothing wrong. Damon did nothing
He was
wrong.
loyal, and according to several sources, he always hired assassins to do his bidding, which, in a sense, is him creating jobs. He's a job creator.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I guess Swifty's got a stream going on at the same time. Someone asked about me. I'm
Oh,
sure he'll be very diplomatic. Swifty's always very diplomatic. So Um, okay. It's pretty late. So, Carmine, any last things before I say goodbye?
No, we gotta convene to talk about the boys,
Okay.
which you would like. I'm actually curious what you're gonna think about the boys because you and I both love a good, right wingers getting slapped on the boys, but it's kind of become a burden now that it seems like the showrunner is just like story is secondary, making fun of right wingers is like primary. That would seem like it's fun. It seems like it's fun, but like, uh,
Well, I mean, it may be that, it's he had to make things a little more explicit. It's an anxious time. It's on his mind. So,
not like this. I'm curious to see if you ever like take it up. We'll have to do a conversation about it with our boy Mr. Logan. But yeah, the boys acolyte. We got to catch up on acolyte.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay. All right, man. Well, thank you everybody for sticking with me, and we'll see you next time.